Well, I asked, where's the beef? Let's call this for what this is. Oh my God! They are so hopelessly woke. How dare you? That is the intellectual capital of the left today. Give me a break. You are now watching the Daily Roundup. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. You have tuned into the Daily Roundup on this, a Tuesday, April 25th, 2023. I'm David Menzies, and my co-host, well, let me tell you a little bit about my co-host. Do you know, folks, today is National Library Workers' Day, and before she drove all the way into Toronto, my co-host went to the Coburg Library to wish the library workers greetings on their National Day, and that included the head librarian, of course, the receptionist, and the drag queen. She is the she-devil with a spatula. She is the Khaleesi of the greater Coburg area. She is Tamara Ugolini. Welcome. What an honor.
Yeah, thanks, David. I always appreciate your tall tales there of library visits. I feel like it wasn't long ago that it was was it Librarians Day? It wasn't long ago that there was another National Library Day.
Yeah, it's kind of like the LGBT community, because I think just recently there was the Lesbian Day of Visibility in April, and I'm thinking, well, aren't they part of Pride Day, which became Pride Week, which became Pride Month, and now, according to Sheila Gunn-Reid, is Pride season. Soon it'll be Pride year, I guess.
Pride generation.
So, yeah, and I guess there's Earth Hour, there's Earth Day. Mm-hmm. I'm sure they're working on some other thing. By the way, there's another day on the calendar today, which I thought was interesting. National Hug a Plumber Day. I guess the whole Me Too thing, it hasn't come to the plumbing industry.
Those poor plumbers, be prepared.
You know what? I wish... I'm telling you, if this journalism shtick ever dried up, and you know what, with AI being what it is, maybe we're about to be replaced by kinder, gentler Terminators in the near future. But I wish I had the skills to be a plumber, to be an electrician, and I tell that to people, don't put your kids into university taking crazy bird courses like gender studies. Go to the trades. There's so much money there. The trades are begging for great workers. If I had to do it all over again, that's where I'd go. I mean, we had our longtime employee, Brian, a couple of years ago. He left to become an electrician. And I thought that was fantastic. I signed his farewell card. I said, Dear Brian, please, when you're working with electrical appliances and whatnot, do not get electrocuted. But if you do get electrocuted, I hope you don't die and instead become like the Spider-Man villain, Electro. Yeah.
There you go. All the villains. Well, you heard it here first, ladies and gentlemen. David Menzies in a past life would have been a plumber or an electrician.
Yes.
All right. So if you're just tuning in from home, we're not going to discuss David's pet projects and his school wishes, how he would have deviated from his journalistic path, which I'm sure all of our viewers at home are so happy that you set forth onto. But this is our daily live stream where we dissect some news of the day and some of our own stories. And for anyone joining us at home, you're probably watching us on one of, I think it's 5 different platforms that we stream on. So YouTube, where we have a massive following there, despite the fact that they have completely demonetized us. And really, we kind of teeter on that fine line of being deplatformed completely. We have to, unfortunately, self-censor if we want to stay on YouTube. But we're also on Rumble, Odyssey, Twitter, and Getter. And so because YouTube's demonetized us, you can only engage with us directly on Rumble and Odyssey through Hyper Chat or a Super Chat. And so that's a fun way for you to give us a small monetary donation of $5 or more. And then we will read your comment on screen, and maybe it's a tip or you want to get our feedback or just banter with us. So head on over to one of those other platforms if you're not there already. Send us a little super chat because it helps fund our independent journalism. And much like the state broadcaster, all of our mainstream media, we don't take a dime from the government. And so other than having to self-censor a little bit to stay on certain platforms, we're allowed to report on whatever following the facts wherever they may lead. And so that's what we do.
I am so astonished at how you remember all that. And, whenever I hear Getter, I always say to myself, good thing it wasn't called Grabber, because I think of that poor fellow in the East Coast. His actual surname, folks, is Grabber. And he had a vanity plate stating that for like 20 years. And then one complaint came in thinking that his surname Grabber meant grab her, speaking of Me Too, and they took it away from him. I mean, this is the censorious world we live in, and which leads us to our topic, because I know we have to be careful when it comes to anything vaccine related, because the great gargoyles of YouTube might give us the whammy if we say something incorrect in terms of a thought crime. But I see, oh, goodness gracious, Tamara, blackface, he's at it again. He's going on about misinformation and disinformation. This is the guy, I've lost track of the scandals. The We Charity, the Trudeau Foundation, Chinese interference allegedly in our elections, SNC Lavalin, Jody Wilson-Raybould. I mean,
Aga Khan.
Oh, yeah, like I said, I've lost track. It's like I need a score card. But, yeah, he's going on about misinformation and disinformation vis-a-vis information surrounding the vaccines. Let's see what blackface has to say and try to make sense of it all.
Oh, gosh. Good luck. Oh, we're in perpetual load mode.
Oh, it's the wheel of death. Well, you know what? I'll tell you, maybe that's a gift. When blackface is censored by the tech gremlins, who am I to complain? I think we got it now. Here you go.
Well, if someone looks outside and says it's a beautiful blue sky sunny day today, we would know that's wrong, because our experience here in Ottawa, our experience looking out the window tells us otherwise.
We experienced it differently.
But if someone says the earth is flat, you can see extensive YouTube pages devoted by people who've decided, and this is a recent phenomenon over the past decade or so, that the earth is flat, because their experience as they look out to the horizon is, boy, the earth sure looks flat. So it can't just be about perception. You look on the Weather Channel, oh, it's raining in Ottawa. Okay, so it's not a blue sky sunny day. We have to agree that we're going to agree with the Weather Channel on this, or with the scientists from Environment Canada who are saying that it is sunny today in Ottawa, or it is rainy here today in Ottawa. There has to be an acceptance that there are experts out there that create a basis of fact that was built up on in generations to tell us that, water is wet and it freezes at 0 degrees Celsius, and there are scientific realities that have been proven and accepted. And the challenge that we have now is that increasingly misinformation and disinformation is carrying people to believe things that are untrue. And vaccinations is a perfect example of it.
Yeah. Oh, Tamara, is that not rich? Blackface lecturing us on disinformation and misinformation. And one of his examples is vaccines. And I know you've got lots to say about that. But I got to ask you a question. Given that delivery, and I know he's a former part-time drama teacher, was he auditioning there for the host of Romper Room? I felt like this was a junior kindergarten teacher lecturing the little kids in the classroom on blue skies and a sunny day. I mean, that was embarrassing.
It really was. It coming from the government who, espoused this claim as safe and effective, and now is slowly trying to backpedal on the fact that they incentivized people to go out and get this vaccine, when really their incentivization was straight up coercion, because they stole people's gainful employment, stole away their ability to get EI, so employment insurance, for anyone who was found to be in non-compliance with a workplace safety mandate, i.e. the COVID-19 vaccine mandate. So it's really funny to see, because we have the receipts. We actually have all of the clips where Trudeau espoused very segregationist rhetoric about who is and is not vaccinated and who is and isn't putting people at risk. I mean, he even went so far as to say, don't you dare think that you can get on a plane, a train, or I think he said automobile, and put my children at risk. The rhetoric espoused by Trudeau when he campaigned on the COVID-19 wedge issue of vaccination was astounding to see from an apparently Democratic leader. But now they're backpedaling completely and pretending like none of that stuff happened. Actually, we have the next clip here is that Trudeau says he didn't force anybody to get the jab.
Oh, yeah, right.
Like any modern bit of medical advancements, there are potential side effects in vaccinations. And there are people who've probably gotten very sick from vaccinations, on the billions of people who've been vaccinated against COVID over the past few years. But there are far more people who obviously have died due to COVID, died from not getting vaccinated. And the idea that people can fly in the face of science, well, individuals are allowed to make their own choices. There may be all sorts of different reasons why someone is hesitant to get vaccinated. But I make a distinction, and I always have, between someone choosing for personal reasons to choose not to get vaccinated and someone deliberately using misinformation to mislead and scare other people with so-called facts that aren't facts at all, that lead them to make a choice that endangers their lives and the lives of other citizens. So as Prime Minister, through the greatest public health crisis that we've faced in 100 years in this country, since the Spanish flu, my responsibility was to keep as many Canadians alive as possible. And all of the scientists and the medical experts and the researchers, not just in Canada, but around the world, understood that vaccination was going to be the way through this. And therefore, while not forcing anyone to get vaccinated, I chose to make sure that all the incentives and all the protections were there to encourage Canadians to get vaccinated. And that's exactly what they did. We got vaccinated to a higher level than just about any other of our peer countries. And that's why we had a less deadly pandemic than most other countries.
Tamara, blackface does it again. He is correct, folks. There were no forced vaccinations, i.e. the federal government didn't have vans shanghaiing people off the streets and jabbing a needle into their arms. But that's not to say there was no coercion, like being suspended without pay, which is a fancy way of saying you're fired. If you don't get the jab, you're not going to have your job. That is talk about misinformation and disinformation, Tamara. He was giving his government and other governments, municipalities, provincial governments, there's plenty of blame to go around here. They were giving people, millions of Canadians, an economic death sentence unless they complied. To me, that is a forced vaccination. I'm sorry.
Well, and that's one of the WHO's, the World Health Organization's #1 social determinant of health is your ability to be gainfully employed and having that financial security. Yep. And that was stolen from people by this same government all throughout 2021. I mean, personally, I have a friend who, I don't know if they'll go back to working with the federal government, but had a job with the federal government in 2021, was pregnant, did not want to receive this experimental injection despite being very much pro other vaccines, and had to go on an early maternity leave because push was coming to shove and there was decisions that had to be made, and so has been on an early and now extended maternity leave ever since. And I don't know what will happen in the end. But it's very clear from also the people that I've heard from, both in journalistic reporting, but also in my personal life, that this government instituted a heavy-handed vaccine mandate. Either you get it or you'll face job loss. And the funny thing is that these injections were once sold to us as 100% safe and effective, right? There was no risk of a vaccine reaction. And now you have our fearless leader, Justin Trudeau, acknowledging that there are risks. Well, where were you the last 2+ years stating that these were 100% safe and effective for everyone from 6-month-olds up until, you're on your deathbed?
Oh, 100%. And, here's an anecdote, Tamara, and I don't know if you're coming across this more and more frequently, because I sure am. Just last week, I was at my eye doctor for an appointment. I was speaking to the assistant to my eye doctor, and she told me, a lovely lady in her 40s, very healthy, she said that she got the 2 jabs and the 2 boosters.
Wow, 4.
Yes. Total buyer's remorse. You want to know why? She got COVID 3 times after 2 jabs. And so it doesn't even work.
Well,
and the people that are pro-vaccine, they say that, you got COVID, but you see, here's the benefit. If you hadn't had your jabs, it would have been much more severe. How can you prove that?
Exactly.
You can neither prove or disprove that. I also want to say, too, in the first clip, I really take umbrage to this. Trudeau comparing people who have hesitancy to getting vaccinated with an experimental mRNA vaccine. He called them, he drew the parallel to flat earthers, right?
It's not the first time.
That's astonishing. And I know, I know we're going to get, feedback from people that believe this. There's even a flat earth convention that takes place every year. I'd love to cover that. I think it would be a descent into madness. But I think that's more a product of the internet. I mean, put another way, Tamara, you're aware of the bronies, right? These are
jabronis?
No, not jabronis, the bronies. These are mature adult males that are obsessed with My Little Pony.
Oh.
And what I'm saying, and until recently, there was an annual convention, drew thousands of them. And I think before the internet, Tamara, say I had that obsession, I'd be in my basement going, oh my God, I am obsessed. I'm obsessed with a cartoon.
You're not making this up.
Yeah, no, I'm not. I'm obsessed with a cartoon that's targeted towards girls aged 3 to 7.
Gross.
What is wrong with me? I need psychiatric help. But you go onto the internet, and you know what? You find out there's clubs, there's conventions, there's thousands of people like that. Hey, I'm part of a thing, I'm a brony, and say it loud, say it proud. This has been one of the most unfortunate effects, I think, on misinformation and disinformation. It's just the very existence of the internet.
Let's not forget that this government was the purveyor of mis and disinformation throughout the onset of the pandemic. Right at the beginning, March 2020, our public health overlord, Chief Public Health Officer Theresa Tam, she couldn't decide whether or not we should close the borders. At first it was racist and xenophobic, and then all of a sudden we should close the borders, and then at first it was masks don't work, they do nothing to stop the spread of a virus, an invisible virus at that. And then all of a sudden masks do work. And so the flip-flopping of this government throughout the last 3 years, but very heavily in those first few months of the pandemic, as they disregarded completely all of the well-established pandemic response plans that we had in place, both as a country and also provincially, they have been the leaders of misinformation, and now they're just flipping that script onto anybody who was actually following the science or following the facts and pointing out those loopholes. So this is really an interesting unfolding, and there's no acknowledgement of a need for an apology here. This is just trying to cover your rear end.
No, and Tamara, I'm surprised you forgot the biggest lie of all. Remember 2 weeks to flatten the curve? Remember that? You know what that reminded me? There's a movie from, I think it's 1985. It's called The Money Pit. I think Tom Hanks is the star in it. And it's not a very good movie. I don't recommend it. But what I did like, there's a running joke. It's this couple, they inherit this mansion, but it requires extensive renovations. So there's plumbers, there's construction workers, electricians are all working on this. And they say throughout the entire movie, how long is it going to be until you're finished? And the stand-pat answer is 2 weeks. And the funniest part is that midway through the film, Hanks is losing it. He says, look, you've been saying 2 weeks all this time, I want to know right now, how long is it going to take for this renovation to be completed? And the guy goes, seriously, 2 weeks.
That's it.
And it fades to black, and then it opens up again, and the title card says 6 months later, and the house looks exactly the same. That was the unfunny comedy of the pandemic, this nonsense. 2 weeks. Oh, another 2 weeks. Would you believe 2 months? How about 2 years? 2 decades? And that really, and also from what we know too, Tamara, I look at some of our leaders, like the now disgraced John Tory, right? Mm-hmm. Here's a guy that sicked the mounted unit on Adam Skelly, shut down Adamson's barbecue. Here's the guy that was having the Parks and Rec people paint social distancing circles, 800 of them at Trinity Bellwoods Park. And you got to stay in your circle, and if you get out of the circle, you're going to get an $860 fine. Here's a guy that was so holier than thou, even recommending masking between bites while you eat. And yet, what did we find out during this very time? He was chasing Emily Hillstrom around the cottage, his words, in an email that went to the wrong person, by the way. So the audacity, the chutzpah that these moral authorities, they weren't just, fudging the rules, they were disintegrating the rules when it came to their own livelihoods.
The exact hypocrisy of the bureaucracy that we point out repeatedly is that, what's your saying? Rules for
me and rules for thee.
That's right.
That's right.
So as John Tory is locking you up inside of your house, telling you to stay home and save lives, he was also gallivanting over to Florida, his vacation home.
His $10 million mansion. And I don't know if we had drone footage of somebody coming out of that mansion. This is never a good look, folks. Never do this, even if you are guilty, because it looks even worse. The person put their coat over their head, right? Because they didn't want to be seen. We'll eventually find out. So, also I openly question, where was Mrs. Tory getting her hair done? Because she not a single hair looked out of place during that pandemic. That's, by the way, the reason I wear a hat.
It's interesting that you say that, because my local medical officer of health, who quietly retired toward the end of 2020, when we were all told that cash was unsafe, remember there was that heavy promotion of using Interact and digital interface to pay with. So she was going to a local hairstylist, and someone who was there tipped me off that she was paying cash for her salon services at a time when all of these medical officers of health were in unison saying to, encouraging touchless interaction and discouraging the use of dirty, grimy, COVID-spreading cash.
And the most despicable thing of all, and we covered it certainly, Tamara, was gyms being forced to shut down. So you're out of work, you're at home, you can't go to the gym to do something healthy, such as lift weights or do cardio exercises. And then you've got fat bastard himself, Premier Doug Ford, recommending that everybody eat cherry cheesecake. Yeah, great advice, Premier. I guess we really want to increase obesity, heart disease, diabetes, high cholesterol. Unbelievable. But those were our so-called leaders during the pandemic. Tamara, we have to break for an ad.
Before we go to an ad break, let's just read out this one super chat because it relates to the topic. Okay. And then we'll head to an ad break. Adamot gives $5. I guess blackface never heard of the old joke that weathermen are like politicians. Both are liars. What a bad analogy to use for his mis- and disinformation campaign. That whole speech was a lie.
Oh, Adama, you are speaking my language. I've long said, Tamara, that the best gig on the planet is being a weatherman or weatherwoman, weather person, however you want to frame it. You
weather
say,
person.
It's going to be about 9 to 12 degrees, and there's like a 40 to 80% chance of rain. And you can even with those ranges, you can be absolutely dead wrong. And you know what? You never get a memo. You never get reprimanded. You never get fired. You can fail every day. and still be gainfully employed. Yeah. Much like blackface has failed us every day since 2015 and still gainfully employed.
And gets a raise.
Yeah, that's right.
So we'll go to a quick ad break. We'll come back for more.
Righto.
The Tamara Lich has been released from jail.
Western separatist Tamara Lich.
Lich will remain in custody.
We have breaking news out of Ottawa to tell you about. A judge has made a decision on whether to grant bail for Tamara Lich, one of the leaders of that recent demonstration in Ottawa.
You may have seen me on the news, but there's more to my story. In my new book, Hold the Line, I share the story of the Freedom Convoy from the heart of the Freedom Convoy. It's a story of hope, courage, and coming together as a community in the Canadian way. You can buy my new book at theconvoybook.com, and in that book, you're going to hear stories from the heart of the convoy, as well as my arrest and my time in jail, like you've never heard them before. Until very recently, I've been quite silent because of my bail conditions, but now I'm ready to tell my story, my side of the story. I know the mainstream media isn't going to be fair to me, as they've already called me and my friends from the convoy terrorists.
There is increasing concern about violent online rhetoric supporting the convoy, and that those with extreme views are planning on attending.
The mayor who made, in my estimation, just a horrendous decision to negotiate with terrorists.
So I'm launching a book tour across Canada. We'll be doing interviews, signing books, and saying thank you to all Canadians for your support. I've partnered with Rebel News to crowdfund for the cost of my book, as well as our advertising campaign. With your help, we'll be purchasing ads and billboards to spread the word about my book. We'll also be upgrading my home studio, which will enable me to do interviews all around the world. If you're a shop owner or a business owner and you'd like to have a book signing, please fill out the form on our website, which you can find here. And if you'd like to make a donation for the tour, we'll greatly appreciate it. The first 500 people to send in a donation of $200 or more will receive a free signed copy of my book, Hold the Line, My Story from the Heart of the Freedom Convoy. The last time I drove across Canada, something very special happened. Let's make that happen again. Go to theconvoybook.com. Thank you.
Oh, what a delightful lady Tamara Lich is. You know, I love the title, of course, Hold the Line. And I remember back when the trucker convoys were happening, Tamara, hold the line. Oh, what a bunch of white supremacists. It's an insurrection. You know, bring in the Emergencies Act. And yet, last week, I'm looking at the Public Sector Alliance of Canada, all those federal workers, more than 155,000 of them, and they're tweeting out, hold the line. Tamara, do you think blackface is going to invoke the Emergencies Act again?
You know,
same language.
I was wondering the same, but then I noticed that none of them could show up on the weekends because their cause is so important to them, and it's so crucial that they get out there on the picket lines and have their voices heard. But none of them could come out when they weren't being paid to do so on Saturday and Sunday. So.
And when Lincoln and I went to cover the picket line in Toronto, not only would not a single one of them would make a comment, but it was uncanny. Talk about bankers' hours. By the time 4 p.m. rolled around, it was like just a few remaining stragglers. Maybe they were waiting for their Uber rides or something. But and that is a significant number, 4 p.m. because that's one of their demands. If they work past 4 p.m., they get a special bonus of such a rate. You know,
if they can even make it into the office.
Oh yeah, yeah. They want to telework. That means work from home
perpetually.
You know? And remember, the reason for that was COVID.
Yes.
COVID's gone. It's in the rearview mirror. Get back to work. I mean, that's too much to ask for. But and now, and of course, they said, and I noted the language of the head of the PSAC. We're not going to inconvenience Canadians yet. Well, as of yesterday, guess what? They started inconveniencing Canadians. They've now gone to some ports, like in Montreal. And he has hinted they'll be going to airports soon and even land bridge crossings. So his advice is Yeah, factor in extra hours of travel time. Hours. Yeah, you know, it's really easy for this jabroni to say that he gets paid for every hour and probably time and a half after 4 p.m. But for the rest of us, and you know, and the audacity too, the CRA is out on strike, Canada Revenue Agency, and they're saying, but pay your taxes on time or else. I mean, Tamara, this is a slap in the face to hardworking Canadians in the private sector that don't get this kind of entitlement. I mean, what the government's offering, 9% over 3 years, everyone I know says they'd be doing cartwheels if the boss said that to them.
Yeah.
But instead, we're not the anointed ones. We're not the federal bureaucracy.
Well, what's always interesting is when the feds strike, no one notices. So we'll see. We'll see how that unfolds.
I'll tell you something, Tamara, because I'm of an age where I remember this. Back in the 70s, Canada Post, almost on an annual basis, went out on strike. And they literally held the country hostage because that's how bills were paid. That's how people got paycheck, you name it. And today, if Canada Post went out on strike, oh no, you mean I'm not going to get my junk mail today? Are you kidding me? It's all online. So yeah, I think a Canada Post strike is now a redundant thing, thank God, because of the internet. Yeah, I guess there's some good things about the internet now, right?
That's right. Some good things. But before we move on to our next topic, I wanted to let all of our viewers know at home, so especially if you're watching us on Rumble or YouTube, that we are excited to announce that we are now live on locals.com. So that is a place where, and maybe we can pull up our profile there, but locals.com is a place where we can engage with each other, share our thoughts and ideas, and most importantly, stand up for and uphold our right to free speech without the fear of censorship or being deplatformed. So it's a space where you can access all of our free content, but if you would like to get a little bit more, a little bit extra, then you can find all of our premium Rebel News Plus content there too. And if you become a supporter, you can get access to some of those previous shows as well, those premium shows as well. So if you head on over to locals.com, you can join our community and subscribe to it there today. And again, if you're on Rumble or YouTube, you'll see the link pop up there. So you can just click that, and it's an easy redirect where you can sign up and follow us there. So we're going to be slowly building out that platform in hopes of avoiding censorship and deplatforming. So I urge and encourage everyone to go there and check it out.
Speaking of hope, can you stick around after work and tutor me in this locals thing, Tamara? You know me, I mean, I'm unfrozen caveman journalist here. Fast-moving cars and bright lights frighten and confuse me. And here's yet another platform, and I don't have a clue, so I need Tamara's help. She's smarter than your average bear.
We're hoping to streamline things through locals so that you don't have to worry about all of these other platforms, David. Don't worry. We can hold your hand through it.
Please. So, goodness gracious, Lincoln J., our ace photographer and editor, and myself, we went down to Kitchener last night to take in the Waterloo Catholic School Trustees board meeting. And basically, there were dozens of demonstrators there, very angry parents, because Trustee Wendy Ashby, she tweeted out, and I'm not making this up, this is a trustee of a Catholic school board, that a white Christian male is the most dangerous thing on the planet. And there was a petition the parents wanted to deliver. And we sat there, and then we listened to a really boring presentation, and the guy said, "Any questions?" Oh, I had a question. And they all ended up running away. Gee, was it something I said? Let's roll the video. You had a trustee by the name of Wendy Ashby state, the most dangerous creature on the planet is the white Christian male.
Point of order.
They're a threat to anyone that is not them. Does this board condemn or approve this statement?
Could result in your removal from this proceeding should it continue.
Do you support that statement? Do you support that statement?
is Catholic and she is white. My kids are a lot lighter shade of color than I am. And to me, this is concerning because regardless of your skin color or your ethnicity, you should not be hearing comments that are hateful and disrespectful towards you.
So, Tamara, let me tell you and our beloved audience what happened. I got ejected in a de rigueur fashion.
Of course.
Luckily, they didn't know that Lincoln was with me, so they had him stay. So I was on the outside. Lincoln was on the inside. 6 Waterloo regional police cruisers, SUVs, 6 of them showed up. So the board brought in the state muscle. And what ensued inside, because I waited for the parents to come out after they had their shtick, it was like a hostage negotiation, Tamara. The police said, would talk to the parents, what are you looking for? They'd go to the school board trustees that were all hiding in their offices. And basically, the compromise was this. One parent, and you saw the gentleman, one parent can get up and make and ask one question or make one statement. That's it. And if you agree to that, the trustees will come back out. And after he stated the disappointment of that trustee, Ashby, saying that comment, which is racist, sexist, and anti-Christian, not a single trustee, not a single member of that school board denounced those comments. And in addition to being a racist and a sexist, well, Ashby is also a coward, folks, because she knew there was going to be a demonstration. So guess what? She mailed it in. Yeah, she got on Zoom. She didn't dare show her face. I mean, as if she was in any danger. I mean, these are parents. They're peaceful protesters. She's the one spreading hatred and division. Tamara Ugolini, can you believe it? A trustee on a Catholic school board saying that?
I can't. I was going to reiterate the fact that this is a Catholic school board and you're condemning Catholics.
Yep.
This is just atrocious. And again, another point where it's time for the Minister of Education, Stephen Lecce, to step in here because these boards have gone rogue, really.
Yep.
They've gone completely rogue. They're acting like woke, ideologically driven bureaucrats and with zero accountability, zero transparency. And I think this is really part of why the Ontario government is moving to introduce new legislation. But they don't need to. And you mentioned Lecce. I mean, the other day I picked up a milk carton and I saw there was an illustration on it, Tamara, and it was Lecce's spine, and it had the word missing. I mean, Stephen Lecce is now like a professional wrestling referee. It's like, listen, Ugolini, I've warned you 8 times not to use that foreign object, and if you use it again, I'm going to warn you a 9th time. That's Stephen Lecce. And he has the power. Forget about this new legislation. He has the power when it comes to the Halton District School Board and the infamous Busty Lemieux. He has the power to tell these jabronis there to implement a dress code. They won't. He has the power, if he wanted to dissolve a school board. It's been done in Alberta, and he has the same power. And as a matter of fact, Tamara, why do we need school boards anymore? Think about it. We have a Minister of Education, and principals are very much empowered. Why do we have these middlemen meddling with the education system? And really what we've seen in the last several years, folks, is that these aren't people committed to public service. These are Marxists using the school board trustee position as their ascent into higher politics, municipal, provincial, federal, you name it. We don't need these guys. Yeah. See, I would argue that your principal is actually just a glorified administrator.
Well, yeah.
And so they have to succumb to the whims of whatever the school board enforces. But if the school board were null and if they were dissolved, then yeah, perhaps that power could be put back into the hands of a principal. And I think that the point that you're making here is kind of a cowardice way that Lecce, our education minister, is going about all of this, is by trying to introduce this new piece of legislation that looks great on paper, right? It's supposed to improve accountability and transparency in publicly funded schools. But as you've mentioned, he already has the power to do that. And obviously, over the last several months, as we've seen the Busty Lemieux saga, which which we won't get into heavily here, but I'm sure all of our viewers are familiar with it. But as we've seen over the past several months, he's just failed to act and do any of that.
Oh, well, we caught him red-handed earlier this month. Remember, he told folks, the New York Post, that these are not props, these are not prosthetics, these are real mammary glands. He started developing at 39. He's got this medical condition. And to the Halton District School Board, oh, this was a gift from God. You see, we can't fire him now. This would be like firing a handicapped individual because we don't like the fact that they're in a wheelchair. This is human rights. And we busted him at the Mapleview Mall. He fled via an Uber car, left his real vehicle behind. So to me, Tamara, you lied to your employer. You know what? Termination with cause, period.
Exactly.
Nope. It's still human rights. It's still about inclusivity. So basically, the inclusivity is extended to grifters, liars, and cheats. That's your Halton District School Board. They're absolutely shameful, and equally shameful is Stephen Lecce for not disbanding these bunch of woke joke educrats who really, at the end of the day, folks, they hate the parents and they even hate the kids.
And they don't even want to hear from the parents.
Yep.
And that's the really unfortunate part, is that this could be alleviated, I think, if there was a discussion, a debate, if parents felt like their voices were being heard, their concerns were validated, then it's likely that this could be sorted through. But it's obviously not of interest to the boards to do so.
100%.
Now, before we move on, we did have a super chat here from Aaron Burton 32, gives $5. Thank you. David, amazing report on the Toronto police last week. Unbelievable. Are you able to find that person who uses no preferred pronouns and ask it how that's possible?
Well, Aaron, thank you so much for that. And what Aaron is referring to, and this is why, folks, if you're not a premium subscriber to Rebel News, please think that over and subscribe. I was filling in for Ezra on the Ezra Levent show, and we broke a story. It's a hell of a scoop. It's basically the Toronto police going woke, not by their own choice, mind you. Unlike, say, Anheuser-Busch or Disney World. They're being forced to by the Ontario Human Rights Commission. So woke that transgender people, according to the Toronto police, they don't have equal rights. They have special rights. Mm-hmm. And as an example, when you're put in a holding cell, and I speak from experience being a political prisoner in this country, you surrender your necktie, your shoelaces, your belt, anything that can be weaponized or that you can use to commit suicide. But if it's a transgendered person and they have a dildo, and that's the example given, I'm not making any of this up, that's not a sex toy. That is a so-called gender-affirming article. And you are forbidden to remove it from the trans person. And I got to tell you, I have an ex-soldier friend. He has a saying, anything can be used as a weapon. And that would include a dildo, Tamara Ugolini. And that's the thing. There's an excerpt of that monologue posted on YouTube and I believe Rumble. But if you want the full meal deal, please subscribe. And actually, there's a picture right there. This is from the training module. If we can get it over to our, there you go. These are, look at that, folks. I know you think you walked into a sex shop, but no, these are gender-affirming articles for the trans community, and you dare not take away their toys. Unbelievable.
It truly is unbelievable. Every day I'm like, have we reached the peak hysteria yet? Have we reached peak crazy? And then tomorrow comes.
And it's so crazy. One of the persons giving the training is Sergeant Chevalier. And he's always so sensitive, Thank God we have sensitive cops. I mean, I know, people are getting stabbed at random in Toronto, shoved off subway platforms, what have you. There he is. So he gave this anecdote that he's got a niece but the niece might be identifying as his nephew. So to avoid offense, and this is the example he's giving to the cops, and you can see in the subtitles, let's wait for it, nibbling. It's not a niece or a nephew, it's a nibbling. Nibbling, isn't that a brand of Jolly Green Giant corn or something, Tamara?
Niblets.
Jeez.
Niblets, that's right.
Anyhow, you know what? Before we go on, we should take another ad break. This will be our second of 3 ad breaks, so we'll see you on the other side, folks.
I am doing something today that I have never tried before. Listen up. I'm looking for collaborators in a new and exciting initiative. As you most likely know, YouTube a long time ago demonetized Rebel News, and we are 100% viewer funded. Now, while our supporters are fantastic at helping us cover legal campaigns and special reporting missions, unfortunately, the reality is our day-to-day operational expenses often exceed our income stream. Which is crazy if you think about it, because my videos across all platforms attract hundreds of thousands of views and sometimes even millions. So I want to share that reach with the right partners. If you have a product or business and want to enter a win-win relationship with me, please go to rebelnews.com/ads and fill in the form to let me know. I won't be accepting anyone. I need to believe in your business or product so I can sell it proudly for you. And for successful applicants, I will guarantee a minimum view count, meaning even if your ad is published on the less popular reports, we'll keep promoting your business or product until it gets the agreed minimum eyeball. So again, if you have a cool company or product that either wants to take advantage of my reach or want to support my work through advertising in a way that you can write it off as a tax deduction, or both, head over to rebelnews.com/ads and hopefully we can join forces soon.
Come on, you gotta love Avi. I mean, he is our wonder down under, and you know what? Given the rules as applied by blackface, we are indeed in the fight of our lives, aren't we, Tamara Ugolini? The state wants to censor us, and you know, classical liberalism is dead. In fact, if you're a classical liberal in 2023, I think you're a conservative, aren't you?
Right. Yeah. It seems like the two have kind of enmeshed throughout the pandemic and the way that public health measures were handled.
Oh yeah, that was a dress rehearsal. The more and more I think of it, and I think, you know, politicians of every political affiliation, whether it was municipal, provincial, or federal, I think they were astounded by the compliance.
Yeah.
They said, look, we told them to shut down their businesses. They've shut them down. We told them to wear a mask. They're wearing masks. We told them to social distance. They're doing everything. And you know what? I think power is an aphrodisiac. And they got a taste of totalitarian power. And as our beloved boss, Ezra Levant, says, they really like that taste. Big time.
What do they say? Too absolute power corrupts absolutely.
You got it. You know, so the COVID-19 pandemic was part and parcel of the censorship virus we're seeing around the world right now, too. It's all about power. So, speaking of censorship, maybe, what are your thoughts on the great Tucker Carlson? I love Tucker. Loved Tucker Carlson tonight.
The only person that made Fox News what it is?
You know, there's some other, I mean, I do like Sean Hannity, of course, but, you know, Tucker was the star, not just of Fox News, but of all cable news. We're talking an average audience of more than 3.3 million. And he was their star. He would think of the Oilers in the 1980s. He was Wayne Gretzky, Mark Messier, and Grant Fuhr combined, I would argue. And, you know, the statement was a mutual parting. But we know there's something more to this story. There's so many theories and speculation out there. Where do you weigh in, Tamara?
Well, it's interesting to note that his last monologue had to do with the way that Big Pharma has really captured media and government and I would argue, the whole of society. I mean, Big Pharma has its hands in almost every cookie jar, and they are a conglomerate of financial lobbying with huge financial lobbying capabilities. 100%. And so I think we have an excerpt here from Tucker's very last monologue where he touched on the relationships between news organizations and how heavily they are funded by big pharma advertisers. So that's a really interesting thing to note here.
Yes.
Sometimes you wonder just how filthy and dishonest our news media are. You'll be in the shower and you'll think they're bad, but how bad are they? Well, here's one measure of their badness. You can try this at home. Ask yourself, is any news organization you know of so corrupt that it's willing to hurt you on behalf of its biggest advertisers? Anyone who do that is obviously Pablo Escobar level corrupt and should not be trusted. Sometimes you wonder just how filthy and dishonest.
There you have it.
Yeah, and yes, on cable news networks and other cable specialty channels, it's endless pharmaceutical ads. I mean, I always get a kick, Tamara, because at the end, the last 15 seconds are all the potential side effects. It sounds worse than what you've got.
It's like the auctioneer. It just lists through them so quickly that you're not even sure what you're listening to.
Yeah, the one I'll never forget is anal bleeding. What?
Well, and then you can take another medication to counteract the adverse effects of the other medication. So if you have anal bleeding, well, there's a medicine for that.
And you know, I welcome our audience to Google the phrase "brought to you by Pfizer."
Yes.
And it's about a 5.5 minute long YouTube video of that phrase said over and over and over again by virtually every single show on every single network. You won't believe it. And, we know Pfizer, they've got the big bucks. They were one of the vaccine makers. I mean, you know, you think they'd be content with all the money they're making from that great product, Viagra. That's what a friend of mine actually said.
Not you, yeah.
No, of course not.
A friend. Asking for a friend.
Yeah, a friend, yeah. Don't ask me how I know this, folks, but it's a great product. But seriously.
All of them brought to you by Pfizer. Brought to you by Pfizer. Brought to you by Pfizer. And so when Tucker pointed that out, oddly enough, followed suit, he was let go from or reached a mutual consensus to part ways with Fox News.
And you know what? I think what we're seeing personally, Tamara, is this is the Bud Light moment for Fox News. Yeah, maybe you thought he was biting the hand that feeds, but Tucker Carlson, that is your cash cow. He is your star. He's the one bringing in all those ratings. I mean, as soon as Tucker goes on, the ratings just spike.
Yeah.
And the idea of getting rid of him, and I mean, who could replace Tucker? It is like Anheuser-Busch going ahead with a transvestite being the spokesperson for Bud Light, and then the VP of marketing, who's now on leave, maybe she's never coming back, denouncing the core base of Bud Light, you know, those frat boys. Oh, yeah, like, let's throw rocks at the consumer group that is leaving the liquor store with cases of Bud Light under their arms and try to attract the transgender demographic, which is a scintilla of a percent and probably isn't interested in Bud Light. Wow, what a brilliant marketing strategy. And likewise, I'm wondering if Fox News already has buyer's remorse, because their stock went down by almost 600 million US, I understand, since yesterday.
Well, and the Marxists are only rejoicing.
Oh!
So we have a clip here of AOC celebrating the exit of Tucker Carlson, Alexandria, and I hope I'm pronouncing her last name correctly, Ocasio-Cortez?
No, just call her by AOC. Sounds like I'm about to spit, doesn't it?
I don't even want to play this clip, but nonetheless, here we are.
Tucker Carlson is out at Fox News. Couldn't have happened to a better guy. What I will say, though, is while I'm very glad that the person that was arguably responsible for some of the largest, driving some of the most amounts of death threats and violent threats, not just to my office, but to plenty of people across the country, I also kind of feel like I'm like waiting for the cutscene at the end of a Marvel movie after all the credits have rolled, and then you see like the villain's like hand reemerge out to grip over like the end of a building or something. But deplatforming works, and it is important, and there you go. Good things can happen. Tucker Carlson.
Yeah, so here's the thing, Tamara. They, that is to say the left, they're not even hiding it anymore. They're pro-censorship. They are pro-deplatforming. They brag about it. These are the same people, by the way, when it comes to a real crime like a murderer or a rapist, they'll get early parole, will drop bail. But if you commit a thought crime today, that is a life sentence without parole, without rehabilitation, without a second chance. Like, these aren't classical liberals anymore. These are Marxists. These are about people tearing down society and building it back up as a Marxist utopia, which never happens. Just visit North Korea, Venezuela, Cuba, if you want the proof in the pudding.
That's right. Yeah, I guess we'll see who replaces Tucker and how that will end up for the Marxists and what kind of other criticisms and critiques they will face, which they then transpire and try to claim that equates violence and threats. I wonder, just how accurate that is, that she's received death threats and it's a direct causation was things that Tucker Carlson had said. That seems pretty reaching to me.
Yeah, what an outrageous comment. The other thing, too, that's emerged, I've been doing as much reading as possible on this issue, Tamara, is you recall that Tucker Carlson acquired thousands of hours of footage about what happened on January 6, 2021. And he promoted it heavily. Starting on Monday, we're going to go through so much of this footage, which is so incriminating against the government, really, the Biden administration, in terms of what really happened that day. The first Monday had a lot of footage. Then the next day, Tuesday, just a bit. And it was, I think, what I'm reading between the lines, the Murdoch family got nervous, especially with all the outrage, and that wasn't that rich. The mainstream media, they had no problems not seeing the footage. Yeah, we believe everything the Biden administration is telling us. And then when Tucker got the footage exclusively, they lost it. And it seems that, and I'm putting myself in Tucker's shoes, this is an exclusive. This is a scoop. This is so important in terms of tearing down the narrative of the insurrection. And then perhaps being told by his managers that, no, it's too hot to handle. We're going to reel this back in. I would be furious.
Yeah.
And
the story of the century, really.
It is, albeit the century's young, but there's still people rotting in jail that haven't even been charged yet as part of that outrageous. I'm looking at some of the footage. The guy with the horns. When I first saw that, I thought that was an image from Comic-Con. Yeah. I thought the guy was going as Loki or something.
Look, they're just passively strolling around, checking out the scene. Yeah,
and being welcomed in. Yeah. And, if it really was an insurrection, wouldn't you want to, I don't know, Tamara, call me outrageous, but, bring weapons? Because really, to do a revolution, you really need that part to seal the deal. But there was no weapons here. So absolutely. So it's another theory. But Tucker might be gone, but it's temporary. I can see him starting his own network even. Maybe. Surrounding himself with some other key talent. And he'll be back, I hope, bigger than ever. In fact, I'm predicting that'll be the case.
Yeah,
and
I think so,
Queer
too.
Fox News, like I said, that's your Bud Light moment, guys.
Well, we have one final super chat to get through from Ableist SL, gives $5. Thank you. Can you please put archives of the rebel.media articles on the new site? I want to access them more easily without digging through third-party archives. By new site, I think maybe that's locals.com that Ableist SL might be referring to, but it's definitely something to consider, and we'll keep in mind. I don't have that answer myself, but I'm sure that we could find that. And we're looking into it. Yeah.
Well, if you're expecting some kind of technical answer from me, I mean, that's like bringing your Ferrari to a caveman and asking for a realignment. I mean, I have no idea. So,
but it's a good
if
point.
Tamara doesn't know about this, I am completely clueless.
Well, it's just getting access to that content from 2015 to 2018. So that's kind of lost in the ether. And so how can we bring it back and make it easy to obtain again? So thanks for bringing that to our attention. It's something we will look into.
Is this something we need the expressed authorized consent from Major League Baseball? I always hear that slogan. I have no idea what that means anyways. Anyways, folks, we before you sign off, we have another ad. It's an important one, especially if you're a young aspiring journalist out there. So we're just going to sign off. We're going to play that ad, and please give it a look-see. I want to thank super producers Efren and Olivia. I want to thank all of you who tuned in, especially those who gave us some do-re-mi. That's how we keep the lights on here. And, of course, my beloved co-host, Tamara Ugolini. It is so wonderful when you come in person, you know.
It's nice to be here.
Live, you know, reunited, and it feels so good, I think the song was. I better shut up before I get into trouble. So, folks, I'll be back here tomorrow. I believe it's either with Sheila Gunn Reid or Drea Humphrey. In the meantime, stay safe and stay sane.
Many journalists are really just advocates for woke ideology. They don't report the facts, and they simply don't care about our fundamental freedoms. Well, we're doing something about that.
What happens when the journalists themselves are really bought and paid for by the government? Can they possibly criticize the government freely? The law of the rule-based society is the need for independent news.
We don't push back and get away with it all the time. And I think that is the key, is to push back and call them out of the box.
Everyone kind of wants to be a YouTuber or a media star these days or whatever. And people always ask me, you know, well, how do you do it? What do you do? What's the secret? All that stuff.
No matter what type of journalism you're doing, whether you're doing the advocacy journalism that Robbie does, whether you're doing the investigative reporting that Sheila does, some of the gonzo journalism that David Menzies does, or whether you're working in fiction like CBC, no matter what, you are telling a story.
Great. I think it's very informative. I learned a lot of stuff. I took so many notes. So it's definitely good to be here.
I'm really appreciating the diversity of the speakers. They all contribute really specific details on what to do as an aspiring journalist.
It's been absolutely mind-blowing from start to finish. Firstly, beautiful hall. We've been stuffed. It's like Thanksgiving dinner every night. So that's amazing. And the only thing that beats that are the people around us, the company, some amazing and unique individuals.
The journalism conference has been great. I met many prominent figures in this field and I got great advice.
It was a really good conference, very good to meet all of the